Kia ora, and welcome to Constellations and All That. I'm your host, Tracy Cartwright, and together we will be exploring the world of family constellations with facilitators and clients from around the world, looking at different perspectives and experiences in the work, having a cup of tea, and just chatting with some friends around their experiences in constellations. We'd love for you to join us. I hope that you enjoy this series as much as I have loved making it. Kia ora, everyone. Welcome to Constellations and All That. Today, I have the pleasure of chatting away here with Neil Meekin from the Pool of Life. So I'm going to allow you to introduce yourself, or invite you, sorry, not allow you, invite you to introduce yourself, Neil, a little bit about who you are.
Well, first of all, Tracy, thanks for having me on the podcast. It's so nice to be connected back into Aotearoa, New Zealand, in preparation for the conference that's happening in April, which I'm really looking forward to coming over for from the UK. So yeah, good to be here. So yeah, a bit about myself. So yeah, with a funny accent, I'm from a city called Liverpool in England in the UK. But I've lived in lots of different places over the time that I've been on this earth. But yeah, I lived in New Zealand for 7 years, and yeah, 6 years in Wellington, and then I was a year down in the South Island. That's a whole other story to do with COVID. So
Mm.
that's a story for another day. But yeah, family constellations for come into my life really when I came back to the UK. So when I lived in New Zealand, Tracy, I unexpectedly had to return to the UK. So during lockdown, my nan, God rest her soul, passed away. And so during lockdown, because we didn't have any cases, I could get back to the UK quite easily. I just couldn't get back the other way. So I was stuck in the
Yeah,
UK. Stuck
New
in the
Zealand was a
UK
bit
for three
harder to
months.
get back into, huh?
Yeah. Ended up in it took me about 3 months to get back, and then I ended up in a hotel room in Hamilton for 2 weeks for me
Mm.
sins in managed isolation. But the reason why I'm giving you that sort of context is that when I got back to New Zealand, there was just a real pull for me to go back to the UK, and I didn't really know what it was for. But then when I've come back to the UK, it all makes sense, and that's when the family constellations journey started for me. Yeah, that's where the journey starts. So yeah, here I am as a facilitator, practicing family constellations. So yeah, good to be here.
Beautiful. What were you doing before Constellations? So your line of work. So for me,
So
I was an energy healer, an artist, medicine woman doing stuff like that. So I come in on that side, not the psychology side. But yeah, what were you doing before?
So for many years, I was what's called an innovation consultant, and I still am. I mean, I still the part of my wider practice for the Pool of Life is that I work with innovation, is where I work with ideas and I help bring them into manifestation into the world, and so that manifests through business. So I work a lot with entrepreneurs. I
Mhm.
teach entrepreneurship. I coach entrepreneurs, and these days I work specifically with what's called social entrepreneurs. So these are people and organizations who have got a real social and environmental focus. So in the past, I'd work with maybe government or do a lot of work with corporates, so like with banks and pharmaceutical companies, and just didn't align with my soul.
Yeah,
It's a form of manifestation because you're taking
sounds
things that
brilliant.
are, yeah, but it's brilliant. It's, I know it's because when I can frame it in that particular way, it's you're working with change and transformation, but it's almost like a form of wizardry, I suppose. Yeah, you bring a magic into taking ideas or these things that exist in one's mind, and then you're creating things into physical reality. So it's, yeah, almost like an artist, I suppose, as well. So that's still part of my work. But family constellations has really come in strongly for me. But it's same, but different, if that makes sense.
Mm. Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I can see how you would be able to marry those together quite easily.
Oh yeah, well, it's fascinating, Tracy, because with that lens of family and systemic constellations, and when I'm working with like with companies, you can see how like I mean, for an example, like entrepreneurs, like CEOs, like especially men, a lot of them are operating from this father wound.
Mm-hmm.
that's driving a particular type of behavior. And like, because I've got this constellations systemic lens, I can see it and I
Yeah.
can work with it. So I'm not just working with families, I'm also working with organizations, but the families of the leaders of the organizations and how they
Yep.
manifest into the business. So it's fascinating. Yeah, it's a real gift to be able to do the work.
Absolutely. I love that you were saying sharing earlier that what you do is a little bit of wizardry and the alchemy of bringing it all together, right? Like, and I was sharing with someone earlier. Oh, actually, it was Nikki that we just talked about, who you met on one of our calls, and she was saying when she did her event, she put on her teacher's voice, and it was like, well, these are the things that we're bringing with us, right? We're marrying, we're alchemizing all of the beautiful gifts from the work that we do and the way that we do it, and we're bringing it into our constellations. So, because Hellinger was all about, taking this and putting your own stamp on it as well. So taking the bones, the structure of constellations, and here it is in a framework, and then adding your own essence into it. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for me, my first teacher was a German lady, beautiful soul, and she had learned from Bert, so it was like I had to then find my own Kiwiism in it, my own
Yeah.
way of being Tracyism, whatever. How's that been for you? I know of one of your teachers, beautiful Barbara.
It's been remarkable, really. And because part of the reason for I didn't really know at the time was going back. It was like an umbilical cord that had pulled me back, and I realized that many years ago when I moved to New Zealand, I was running away. So that's come to a realization now that that was what was happening. So I did my ancestry, and it was interesting because I want to touch on this because it was connected to Christchurch. So back in 2016, there's a thing called the Social Enterprise World Forum, and it happens all over the world. And it's like where a conference where all these different businesses that are called social enterprises come together. And there was a young Maori guy. And one of the reasons I moved to New Zealand was to learn more about Maori philosophy and the worldview. And I was chatting to him, got into a really deep conversation. And he said, "Why are you so interested in my ancestry, in my culture?" He said, "What's yours?" And he put me on the spot and I couldn't answer
Mm.
it. I said, "Well, I know I've got Irish, but like I couldn't really say." And it was really interesting because that at that point I'd made an intention that if I ever went back to the UK, then I'd go to Ireland. Well, as it transpired, when I went back to the UK, I went to Ireland, and that's where I trained first. So that where I did my first training was with a lady called Roisin Fallon, who she
Mm.
trained with Barbara Morgan. But obviously Roisin, she's from Dublin, so she's got a very Irish sort of rooted way of facilitating family constellations. And so for me, I was able to go to the land of my ancestors, and where I trained with Roisin, the training happened to be in my line on my maternal line that I was able to get back to,
Yep.
where they left that part of Ireland to come to Liverpool, which is why I'm in Liverpool, is because so I got to train in that exact place where that sort of event happened. So like so it was mind blowing,
From
but
the land of your ancestors, and like literally the land of your ancestors, right? The home.
literally the land, literally the
Wow.
land. So it was incredible. What I realized, because since I've been back in the UK, and soon I'll be moving back to New Zealand, is that the energy of the land in Ireland, the resonance of it is got an essence of almost like New Zealand. It's really
Mm.
interesting. It's got a real ancient magical energy in the land, and the land speaks to you. And it was just a profound experience to train there, and that definitely lends itself to my flavor of how I deliver constellations for sure. It's very earthy, very rooted to the land. Yeah, I get goosebumps as I say that. But then now, as I'm training a second time around to do more advanced training, I'm apprenticed to Barbara, and that's in England. And obviously got
Mm.
Barbara's history, and Barbara trained with Bert Hellinger. So there's there's a whole different energy around it. And when I come to New Zealand, I'm really excited to experience your energy, and to experience some of the facilitators there, like Jenny Gibbons with the whole, I can't wait. And then obviously got Leslie Nips coming from America, who's got a really like, yeah, very strong energy. So yeah, it's interesting how where we train in our ancestry can inform how we facilitate. How's it been for you?
I think it's really opened me up to feeling more connected because we are so, the Pakeha or the white person, the non-Maori here are disconnected from our ancestry. So this journey of
Mm.
constellations is bringing me back to that. But in it, so I did my DNA, and I've always felt really connected with Maori. I grew up in a village, so a very small area, and um, just immersed in it really. And then to discover that actually I do have Maori DNA, and I have Hawaiian and Irish, and I knew I had Irish, and I knew I had Scottish and English, but a very large chunk of Scandinavian and some surprises. So for me, it really makes me want to go to visit these places. Scandinavia, I've already been to and felt at home before I even knew that it was in my DNA. Oh yeah, and then just recently they've done some updates to discover that I have Germanic heritage as well. So that
Okay.
makes sense for quite a few things that have happened in the past 10 years as well. Yeah, and I always admired the way that Maori know their whakapapa. They know their ancestry. Most Maori do. They can tell you who their great grandmother was, which waka, which boat they came out on.
Of course, yeah.
Um, so that is something that the majority of New Zealanders don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because obviously since training with constellations and still having a lot of friends in New Zealand, still surprises me how many people aren't aware of who their ancestors are and where they come from. Um, Pakeha, I mean, going back. And just by doing it, and like obviously you've done yours and me doing mine, it's been life changing.
Mm,
And anyone who's maybe listening to this podcast who is interested in the work or is doing the work or involved in constellations, and they do their ancestry and realize they've got these different threads of these different places, is that it really encouraged them to go and step foot on that land.
mm,
Because when you step foot on that land, your DNA, maybe your
mm,
cells, they know.
mm,
And like I've had some really profound experiences, and all I say is like you've got to go and experience it to understand what I'm saying because it's palpable and it's there. And and Maori will have known this, Native Americans, like any indigenous culture would know this and be like, yeah, of course, it's normal, it's
mm.
profound. So yeah, thank you for letting me share that.
Yeah, you're welcome. I mean, when I stepped onto the ground in Sweden, I said to my friend, "Man, I feel like I'm at home," and this is 30 years ago, and I had no idea. I'd never been there, never. I didn't we didn't even know about DNA back then, like not the way we do now. And yeah, so it really was no surprise. I felt like just going around places, just there was something in me. I had some wild experiences in the medieval part of Stockholm, whether it was cellular memory or whether it was some psychic stuff. Hard to tell. It's a bit blended, but yeah, I get it. I know what you're saying about going there. And even for those of us who've been here for a few generations, right? There is a tie to the land because the land here is pretty special, right? In
Oh
Aotearoa,
yeah, for
like you
sure.
say, in Ireland as well. And I think Ireland is one of those places that really calls people as well. I often have friends say, "Oh, Irish history," and I really want to go there. It's just calling me. So, mm,
Well, in Western Europe, or Eastern Europe and Western Europe, Ireland as a place and as a culture, for me, still retains there's a magic and an ancientness.
mm,
Like if in more the east of Ireland, like the middle east of the country, there's a place called or a county called Westmeath, and in Westmeath, there's a place called the Boyne Valley, the Brunna Boyne, and it's like the Boyne River that comes off the Irish Sea. And along that river going inland, there's There's New Grange, which a lot of people will know of, which was like it's an ancient cairn that aligns with the winter solstice. And then further up, you've got a magical place called Loch Crew. And at Loch Crew, you've got all these different hills with all these cairns. Now, these cairns are 5,000 years old, and they're still there.
What are they?
And cairns, so Cairns. So they're like stone, like mounds that were burial chambers, or they were aligned to
Yeah.
wheels of the year where you can go, and there's a magic there. Now, they're 5,000 years old. They're older than the pyramids, and that's an island. And
Mm,
so there's a lot of belief around, obviously, the fairy realm. Like, there's a place in Ireland where they wanted to build a motorway, and the hawthorn tree, which is like the gateway to the fairy realm, there was a tree in the way. So they built the motorway around the tree so they wouldn't have to cut it down because it would have been bad luck. Do you know what I mean? This is the 21st century in a Western European democracy. So it's a very special place, very special people. Yeah.
mm, beautiful. Yeah. Oh, you're making me want to go there even more.
I can feel
Put it
myself
on my
getting
bucket
like
list.
passionate. You need to go. We continue, you need to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. How would you, how do you describe family constellations when you meet someone for the first time or someone says, "Oh, what are you doing now, Neil?" What do you say? How do you describe it?
Yeah, well, I say to people, I'm doing constellations. Oh, you doing astrology these days? No, no, it's not. It's not astrology. For me, I try and keep it as simple as possible because it's very new for a lot of people. Not many people have heard of it, Tracy. So I would describe constellations is that it's a therapeutic method for bringing to conscious awareness hidden patterns, dynamics, traits, traumas, to bring it into conscious awareness so that it can be transformed and healed for
Mm,
things that may not have started with you that go back many generations. So I keep it that simple, and then I open up the conversation from there and just let it land with people.
great. Yeah. Yeah. That's good one.
Yeah.
There's so many different descriptions for it. So, or angles that you can come in and just, I think you're right. You keep it simple and they might just glaze over and have no idea what you're talking about. But so, okay, right, just change the subject. Or, wow, let's dive into that a little bit more.
There's a
Yeah.
lot of curiosity around it, like in the UK, because that's the context I'm in, is that there seems to be a lot more literacy and awareness of ancestors and the importance of ancestors. Um, I don't know how it's come into the culture, like as a thing, but it's like um, it's there's a growing awareness of it, which is really interesting. Like where patterns and maybe behaviors they just don't, they come from somewhere in the past, and wanting to look at them. So
Is that a recent thing or that's,
yeah, definitely. Maybe
I
I'm in an
think,
echo chamber, but like I definitely, in my context, I've seen a growing awareness of it. Not constellations, the influence of ancestors on the current reality of where people are right now.
which could potentially be a constellation, couldn't it?
100%, yeah.
In a way, in a more linear way. Yeah, well, I guess that there are a lot of records, like the English would have kept a lot of records of different things too. So there would be maybe histories that we don't have here in New Zealand or we don't have access to. Is that the sort of thing you're referring to? Like people
I
know
think it's
these things about because it's recorded.
Well, I think it's more. I tell you what. There's programs on the TV where it's like long lost DNA, and so there's
Hmm.
TV programs that are of an evening time that I cut on the main channels. Not that I don't watch TV, but I'm aware of the programs where people are looking for lost ancestors, and when they find them, like they're having these emotional transformational experiences. It's like,
Mm,
okay, so I'm answering my own question. It's come into popular culture through TV programs like that, and
yeah.
then like Ancestry, like the app that you can get hold of, and like you say, the records in the UK. I was showing me. I went to visit my mum yesterday, and on my Ancestry, I can go back to the 15th century on the
Oh,
English side because
yeah.
you've got the records.
Yeah.
Ireland's different because the bloody
It was
The Crown
destroyed, wasn't it?
burnt. Yeah, they burnt a lot of the records. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I had I'm sure I'm just feeling to this. She won't mind. I won't say her name. A friend, and she came to one of my workshops, and there was some deep struggles in her family with children. So we did some work around. It was really quite a simple process around her Celtic and her Saxon ancestors. So I think it was Celtic, the different lineages, and they were still fighting. They were still fighting behind her, and we had to have some like bring the energy in and line it up and just say, this is, this is your descendant here. And once they were able to be, and just for her to be able to see and acknowledge both, and that she came from both, because there was also a part of her that wasn't really, only wanted to be connected to the Celtic side, and saying yes to all of it. Someone in her family had been looking up her DNA for her, because there was a big gap in her understanding of her lineage. And this person had access to millions of records through the Mormon church. She was highly involved in that. Could not find any information on her. So I think it was through her father's lineage. 2 weeks after we did the constellation, doors opened, and she's discovered, yeah, like centuries back, like you. So it was like coincidence, constellations opening a door. Who knows, right? But it happened. The field moved something. The invisible block came out of the way. So yeah.
yeah, it's fascinating that. I want to touch on that with you if you don't mind. You may have explored it with some of your other guests that you've had on. Um, because I know some people in my community may be not so familiar, but is that aspect you've just talked about there when we do constellations where how events in reality change, and you say you're sort of semi-joking about, okay, well, maybe you're connected to the constellation, but like there's been many experiences where when you do constellation work, sometimes like that night or like, within a few days or a couple of weeks afterwards, something that was completely blocked, like a connection or a relationship, or there was a challenge in work, or there was something happening, or there was a silence around something, you couldn't find something, and bang, after
Mm,
the constellation, it's changed. So I
absolutely.
mean, I see that quite a bit, and especially doing workshops when I'm holding space in workshops, I find like afterwards there's a few synchronicities that'll happen, and it's like a muscle. That's almost like when you're doing the work, you're building up, you're pumping yourself up, and like you're able to attune. But then it sort of drops off a little bit over time. But like, what's your experience of that? Because I don't get a chance to share that very often because it's very common in my experience. Like, what about you?
Yeah, yeah. I've had some pretty profound ones as well, like that experience there. But a woman who was adopted, and after we did a beautiful piece of work, and she said that was it was a one-on-one. She hadn't told me at the beginning she was adopted, so we were working away, and then it was like sticky. It was just couldn't move, and then she said, "Oh, I wonder if it's to do with my biological parents." And I was like, "Oh, okay, let's go into that a bit more." So energetically placed her biological parents in the field, and she just breathed out the first time, was able to relax and go forward a couple of weeks. And she rang me to tell me that she got a message from on Ancestry. She'd been on Ancestry for 5 years and hadn't had a match, not one match. And she got a message from someone who said, I'm your cousin on your maternal line. Oh, it makes me want to cry because I know this person quite well now. Your mother is my aunt, and she was adopted out. So there's the pattern. And our grandmother was an orphan. So the synchronicities of it happening so soon afterwards, right? And then it felt like again, doors opened. Another one where a young woman, her and her siblings had been dropped off one day at their grandmother's place, never saw their mother again. Not in a motherly way. They saw her occasionally at things, but it was always that's your mother over there. She did a constellation with me, and at 7 o'clock the next morning, she got a phone call from her biological mum who said, I'm so joyful and I can't stop thinking about you. And that just shifted everything. She didn't even come for that purpose. She had come to look at her relationship with her brother. But that's what it opened that. So many times when things have been happening. I did a constellation a couple of weeks ago. I don't get to do many because I'm usually facilitating, but I was lucky enough to. And just as I sat down, my phone started going. I looked down and I realized it was my brother. And then in the constellation, she'd asked us to set up some figurines. And unbeknown to me, that so I put my brothers in the field, and the one that had rung me, I actually could feel there was an energetic thread in there, really connected to that. And then in the constellation, it came up through that as well. But so how the field invites the energies of others, if they're listening or if things come in, sometimes people are getting phone calls from someone that they haven't heard from for years. Yeah, so many interesting openings and yeah,
It's
synchronicities,
it's fascinating. I will smile
intuitive.
on my face because it's magical. I don't think the scientific paradigms have really caught up with really what's happening when we talk about morphogenetic fields and these
Mhm.
energetic shifts. It's still considered very fringe. So
Yeah, yeah. What experiences have you had in that way? What have you noticed?
it's very similar to you. I mean, it's not really sort of can add any different. It's very specific situations whereby there's been a constellation where there's been a one-to-one and like or in a group setting. I find that the group setting seems to create more energy where people have got phone calls, like a couple of weeks after. Like there's one particular client who was there who facilitated I facilitated in a workshop, and she just had a complete block with her brother, and within a week. Like she was going around for the dinner and everything has just shifted. So it's obviously not in that we're doing. We're space holders. We're just creating a container and holding a space for the client to be able to, what I believe is just open themselves up to this flow of love, as Bert would say. And it's just as it flows again, it just falls into alignment. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And just for a disclaimer for anyone who's listening, we're not saying we're opening workshops for you to guarantee to have this conversation with someone, right? Or this connection or the door open. But that is seems to be the ripple effect of it
Yeah.
that we see often, right? Yeah. The
It's
coincidence.
interesting that language you use because that's the language I use when I'm speaking to, when I'm introducing the workshop and the work. It's like I say, like, by coming here and doing the work, it's like you're dropping a big pebble into the pool of life. It's
Mm,
like there's these ripple effects that you're not just doing it for you, you're doing it for your family, your community, society. And so it's a point I want to make actually, because for me, family constellations is how or one of the ways I express my activism. So you might have someone who might be down at Parliament in Wellington with a plaque, like, protesting. Like for me, inner work and doing constellations work is my activism around creating change, because what you're changing here and the ripple effects has a ripple effect where if you want to see mature masculine, like when we look at some of the leaders in the world now, well, I have to become the mature masculine in me as an individual, and then they're able to hold space so other people can do the same, and then just that ripple effect over time. So that's how I express my activism. It's like through constellations work.
I know, exactly. I love that. Because as you were saying that, and you were talking about the mature masculine, I'm thinking, how many prime ministers have we got that are 5-year-olds sitting on the seats of power, like that come from their wounds
Yeah,
and
and
in
that's a great point.
any forms of life and any things that we're doing, right? The more we can do that beautiful work, the mahi on ourselves or within ourselves, it ripples out and it benefits and strengthens everything.
Yeah, 100%. It's a real motivation for me when I see what's happening around the world, like geopolitically. It's like it's just with the climate, how things are happening there. It's like, okay, bring it back to me, like doing the work. And like
Mm.
you're not judge, it's important not to judge the leaders like that we see, like these 5-year-old leaders. But they're there, as you could argue, speaking in a very general sense, like you say, it's trauma, like there hasn't been a maturity. There's a lot of in Western culture anyway, where we're really missing our elders in a general sense. Like within more traditional sort of cultures, there is that rites of passage where the boys then become the men, but we've lost that. And so then we get these
Mm.
leaders who, I'm conscious not to go off on a political angle, but it is still connected back to the constellations because you can obviously through constellation work really build that maturity and build that strong masculine, that strong feminine,
Mm.
because we take our mother and our father fully into our hearts.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I'll bring it away from politics and bring it into nature. So
Go
Michael
on.
Quinn, he's a facilitator here, and he tells the story about how in Africa, in one of the big safaris parks places, there was too many elephants. So they took the young elephants, the young male elephants, and they put them into another park, thousands and thousands and thousands of kilometers away, because there was too many young bull elephants, right? And then what happens? Within the next 12 months, 2 years, they start to notice things are happening. The rhinos are being mutilated. There are so many, like, other animals are being mauled and decimated, and things are getting out of hand. These young bulls are getting out of hand. And they realized there were no elders. There were no elder elephants. So they transported two, what do they call them? The older elephants, the big bull elephants, anyway, the elders. And within months it stopped. They had something to follow. They had no direction. There was no leadership. There was no that knowing, that guidance, that structure.
Yeah, it's huge.
Following.
It's a
Yeah,
great,
amazing,
it's a
eh?
lovely example. It's a lovely example. Lovely, maybe not the wrong word, but it's a great example of, in the animal kingdom, that playing out. Yeah,
Mm,
it's same but different.
mm, absolutely. And the wisdom that is stored within our elders, right?
Hmm.
Mm.
Absolutely.
So you're working with Barbara Morgan. You want to share a little bit about anything around that? For those who don't know, Barbara Morgan, and she's not the founder, but she's one of the people that hold the Knowing Field, which is a journal, which has
She
been
did.
online and a huge resource. She did, yeah. I've connected through her with and some of her writings as well. She's created some beautiful books. Yeah, and a great leader in the work, right?
Yeah, well, Barbara is one of the elders. Like Barbara, I don't know exactly her age, maybe 74, something like that. But she's absolute dynamite,
Mm.
and we're on an advanced training now, and I think there's 24 of us, and she's holding that. I mean, in Ireland every year they do constellations camp. We got like there's a big field and we're there for 5 days and Barbara's like she gets invited over and we're in a big yurt and there's Barbara and there's 50 people and she can just knock out constellations all day every day and not even break a sweat. She is just an absolute powerhouse. And to get the opportunity to train with her, Tracy was really important. So
Mm.
Roisin was great in Ireland. That was a very particular theme around that for me, obviously with my ancestry. But then I wanted to get the opportunity to train with Barbara because Barbara, I trained with Bert, and obviously there's an old known field, and I get to be apprentice to her, so I get like extra time with her and just to learn from that. Again, just I've got a massive respect for elders. Yeah, she's incredible. Just out of confidentiality, I can't obviously what goes on in the trainings, but like what she can hold. So I've practiced with different facilitators, and different people have different styles. So like Stefan Hausner, as you know, has a very particular way. Leslie Nips, who's like obviously headlining at the festival at the Constellations intensive in New Zealand, she's got a particular way. But Barbara, she's just got a way of just going that extra level of depth. But
Mm.
she goes into what I say is like going, she really goes into the shit, which a lot of people will sort of maybe bypass because it's a little bit too much. But as she really gets in there into the
Yeah,
shadows, yeah, takes you through it, and it's the real dirty work, at times. And I love that because that's to where a lot of the gems are. So I really, I mean, there's nicer constellations as well, but she can really hold the depths of the work and the space. Yeah, it's a real privilege. I'm learning so much.
beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
The more you're sharing about Ireland, it reminds me of a piece of work I did. I was with ISCA and the International Systemic Constellation Association, and we had a gathering and the Australasian side of things, New Zealand and Australia, we combined and did some work together. And one of the exercises that I put together was meeting an ancestor from their lands, so if you know, and if you don't know your ancestry, you could just say, I would like to meet an ancestor who's not from where I am now. But I think we had three. I had my Scottish, my Hawaiian, and my Scandinavian. I popped them into the field, invited others to represent, just hold space. Don't need to go into the trauma. It wasn't about that. It was just about allowing them, one of them, to pop in, because obviously there's going to be millions from each of those lines.
Hmm.
And it was pretty phenomenal just being in that presence, that energy, because when others represent, there is that sense that that you still know that you're yourself, but you also know that there is something else there as well, and you're holding space. And so some of the information that came through
Yeah.
was very um, poignant, and some of it was a little confusing, but has now become clearer. And it was a beautiful exercise to have, just opening the field of awareness if you want to use that intuitive muscle and that constellation experience. Yeah, that's what I love, like exercises in my workshops, so that everybody gets to experience something. But that was pretty special.
Yeah, I love what you've done there. Like you talked before about telling it about there's no dogma, where there's just that. I can almost imagine you, Tracy, like even just like in the spirit of the moment, you can build it. You'll something will come through you quite
Mm,
intuitively, like an exercise, and like there isn't that rigidness in it that you can just okay, well, let's set up something for like your ancestral land, and it just what can come through if that is like it's profound, isn't it?
mm, yeah.
People don't realize when they come in, like when they step into representation for something, and all of a sudden, like the energy changes, they start getting this information through. It's like, what's going on? Like it's really palpable. It's something to be experienced. Yeah, but yeah, I really
Mm,
respect you. Yeah, I can't wait to
mm.
do your workshop. By the way, what are you doing?
No, looking forward to it. We've got a bit planned, so that's cool.
Can't wait.
Getting it all together. It's only 5 weeks away, Neil.
I know. I'm excited.
Me too. Me too. It feels like a real honor to be able to do this for the community in New Zealand, and to spread the word so that more and more people start talking about it, sharing it, and then the ripple effects that people benefit from this work. I think that's one of the best things for me. It's like is that ripple effect as well. Like that when you work with someone and they are able to move or look at their things, that is going to ripple out to others. Others will receive them differently, or it moves things within the family system. I saw that my first one. I saw that my first and my second constellation that I ever did. The shifts for my siblings wasn't my
Oh, okay.
intention to do the work for them, but I saw the shifts that happened around them and for them. So mm,
Yeah, sometimes it's just that one person in the family system. Hey, I don't want to call it the black sheep, but like there's always the one in the family who does the
the
work.
psychedelic sheep, maybe. Many different names, right? We have many different names. Yeah, they're usually the ones doing the most work.
Yeah.
Not always, but usually. Mm. Wow, it's been great to talk to you. Is there anything else that you'd like to share? How would people find you? I know I'm going to put information on here, but sometimes people are audible and audio and they like to just hear it. If they wanted to
Yeah,
connect with you, do you do work online?
I do. Yeah, I'm doing more work online now. It's so you can find me mainly on Instagram, and that's where I post most of my content. So it's my name Neil Meekin, and it's at the Pool of Life. I've got a website at neilmeekin.com. The Pool of Life, people often ask me where that name comes from. So there's a famous psychologist called Carl Jung, Jung,
Mhm.
and in his book Memories, Dreams, and Reflections, which is like a biography, he had a dream about Liverpool, and he'd never actually been there, but it's actually in the book. And basically he said that Liverpool is the pool of life, and there was this profound dream that he had. And there's a bust. So where the Beatles used to play in Liverpool, it's called Matthew Street. There's a bust of Carl Jung's head saying Liverpool is the pool of life. So it's the
Oh,
business is
wow.
the business is named after that. Yeah, about Carl Jung's dream about Liverpool. But that's where you can find me mainly on Instagram. But I do work online. If you want to come to Liverpool, might be a long way for people in New Zealand, but they'll get to experience me at the Constellations Intensive. So yeah, there we go. That's where you can find me.
Fantastic. Awesome. Thank you so much. It's been a
Thank you,
pleasure.
Tracy.
Been a pleasure, and I can't wait to meet you in person.
Yeah, I can't wait. And bring you your musical instrument, whatever that is.
It's on its way. I got a notification. It's on its way. That'll be a treat for everyone. I'm going to do a sound bath. It was decided last night that I'll do a sound bath, and I get to play my new instrument that will be hand delivered by Neil. So very grateful for that. Yeah,
There you go.
this postage is ridiculous, but that's another story, right?
Hand delivered, yeah, by Liverpudlian all the way to New Zealand. Yeah.
Yay, that's so cool.
Thank you so much. You want to say thanks for the invite onto the podcast, and yeah, I'm really grateful and excited to come and facilitate a workshop at the intensive in Rotorua in April. So thank you.
You're welcome. My pleasure. Thank you for listening. Head over to Instagram and tell me what's resonated for you with this episode. You'll find me at tracy.cartwright. That's Tracy with no E. Cartwright. Or head over to my website, tracycartwright.co.nz, and receive a free audio with the gift from your ancestors. So until next time, be kind to yourself and have fun doing it.